The Podski with John Baker. For over 1 year, the revolutionary force in audio entertainment.
Ooh, yeah!
Brother,
Let me talk to you! Freak out, freak out!
I just had an out-of-body experience!
The insane in the membrane!
Brother,
Yeah! And I'm here for only one reason, and that's to take it to the limit, yeah!
somebody stop the damn man!
I'm living on the edge.
Who is your daddy?
Hello and welcome to the Podski. I am your host, the man of 1,000 gimmicks, Johnny Bake Show, episode 75. And today we're going to be going over the Survivor Series show over the weekend. Before we get into all that, we got the usual group in here. We got the Junk Bees. We got Justin Andretti, and who is out on cold, but he might be chiming in here a little bit. And we got Teddy Mongoose. What's going on, boys?
I can hardly talk. I'll try to jump in a little bit, but it's not been a fun day. Hashtag shout out to my father-in-law for getting everybody fucking sick.
Yeah, hopefully everyone had a good Thanksgiving.
It's not COVID. I just have a real bad. My throat's just real bad.
Yeah. The perks of joining the families for the holidays. Everyone passes a sickness around.
Yeah, I can empathize here, not because of personal illness, but it wouldn't be Thanksgiving if baby Mongoose didn't get terribly ill and not like ruin for the family, but I mean ruin like for her. The trip back across Western PA or from parts unknown to basically just lay on a couch all day with a fever. Nothing like an old ear infection, sinus infection, back-to-back jack. We're on the other end of that though. Light is being seen at the end of the tunnel. Appetite's back. She was up and at 'em all day today, so that's good. But yeah, that's how it goes. This all started, I think she was whenever she was 2 years old. Was whenever this first started. I went to go wake her up to say, hey, let's go to Nana's, and looked, and she was out of her crib, which was insane. Like, she climbed the cage, dude. She scaled the cage and got out over top. Not different than like Michael's escaping the first Hell in a Cell, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what's he gonna do? So she's out, and so I, as a young first time, obviously only time father here, I'm looking around like, where's my kid? She's sitting in a corner, with puke all over the place.
No.
So yeah, dude. So, that was the primal instinct. Don't throw up my bed, right? Let me just climb out of here and vomit all over the floor. And then it's been a holiday tradition ever since is that whenever we get to Thanksgiving, she's going to be out for the count. And then we just drag her around everywhere like a weekend at Bernie's, show her to everybody, and then just let her lay on the couch.
She's always in a last man standing match.
Always, dude. Always.
Oh my. But yeah, so if you haven't listened to it yet, make sure you go back and listen to the Hot Shots Wrestling Alliance. We wrapped that up last week on Thanksgiving. I did lose. JC won, pulled away. He ended up having 2 5-star matches on his WrestleMania. I ended with 2 4.5 stars and could not overcome the obstacles. Stone Cold Steve Austin almost held me up for $100,000 at WrestleMania, which would have been very apropos for him because he really wanted to tag with Ultimate Warrior, but instead I put the belt on him. So I guess being the tag champions with Ultimate Warrior meant more to him than being the world champion of SmackDown. So, but congratulations to JC. And make sure that you, if you're listening to us on YouTube, you drop a like and subscribe. And if you are listening in podcast platform, wherever you're getting your podcast from, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe. Helps us out. And but yeah, so before we jump into the show, I know that we had the other one that we did a preview 2 weeks ago on Full Gear. So Mongoose, you want to give your takeaways of what that show was before we get into the show?
Absolutely. So my favorite things to watch, and it sort of timed out well with the end of like OG NXT Sort of, they had that crescendo right around the time of the start of AEW. And then as AEW pay-per-views became, they figured out their schedule built around what we were looking forward to and everything. With the end of the TakeOver era, being the show that the 4 or 5 shows you could watch a year, where you knew that you were going to see absolute great matches for 2.5 hours at a clip. That's been replaced with the AEW pay-per-views. The week to week, could be frustrating or tough to watch, or it's sometimes downright skippable. But those shows are always great, man. And this one was no different if we're looking at strictly in the ring. The Hangman and Swerve match, I saw all sorts of things. And as I was watching that match and I was going back and forth with Andretti and Beautiful Bobby and a couple of others, that Hangman and Swerve match was beyond words how good the match was for it being what it was, which was this death match, revenge fight and everything. I heard a lot afterwards. Like, for example, I heard like Les Thatcher's buried it. I did hear Dave Meltzer say, and then I read in the Observer, actually, he had some really good points that said like the blood drinking spot was one that was very polarizing and probably not a good idea, which at the time I was one that was like, dude, this is crazy. Oh my gosh, this is insane. Reading in the Observer made a lot more sense to me than Thatcher. And I love to listen to Thatcher, because Thatcher to me is he's digestible Cornette, to where he shares a lot of the same sentiments that Cornette has in terms of traditional wrestling, but I don't feel like he hates me for liking stuff that I watch, right? Whereas Cornette hates me, or makes me feel like he hates me and that I'm a dumbass for liking things that I actually like. And so his arguments were things like, okay, like it's just gross. And then what about disease and everything else? Which in my head, my counter argument is, dude, you've seen people cut each other from ear to ear for 40 years. And I got news for you, man, like blood's going to get into crevices, whether or not you choose to put it in your mouth or not. Right. But I absolutely understood his take. The Meltzer one, though, was the one that made the most sense. And that show was chock full of execs and Hollywood people and, all sorts of those that you want to rub elbows with in a contract year for your TV. And even if they weren't turned off, so if they were high-fiving each other when they saw it, coming off of that cocaine NWA spot, it's probably not smart, right? Because that was just internet backlash, right? Of people saying like, oh my God, this is disgusting. And NWA Power or whatever, they lost their entire TV deal, I guess. And so people will, and he wrote this in the Observer, and I agree with it. People will absolutely weaponize this spot against AEW, because there are many interests out there, especially, with the Titan Squad, that want to see them collapse, right? And I don't even mean like internet haters, quote unquote. I mean, there are true business entities that want them to fail. And it's probably in a match that didn't need that spot, again, as much as it was, oh my God, for a match that didn't need it. Man, it really makes me sort of second guess it, happening now. And I guess, hindsight's 2020 there, but the match was incredible, man. It was absolutely incredible. I do agree with the sentiment that Dave also wrote about, where he had said that the staple gun spot, which one again saw that live and I'm screaming in my living room. If this doesn't turn Swerve babyface, then that spot doesn't make a lot of sense, because that's a total, oh my gosh, cheer this guy, he's a warrior spot. And then getting that win over a guy that's fighting for his family probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I am really excited to see where they go, though. Like, I genuinely am. I'm hoping that Swerve, gets one of those things where, that was the first step. And now I don't want to turn tomorrow, right? Like, this isn't a thank you fans kind of deal. But if we get week by week that he's getting cheered and cheered and cheered, almost like the way that they turned the Elite face in New Japan, where they were bad, and then they just kept getting cheered, so they were good. I don't have a problem with that at all. wrestling on the show, top to down, was great. The Tony Storm match was the only one that wasn't any good. That the main event, though, man, and we could talk for hours about this, and it should be its own separate show. That main event angle was a WWE angle, and the thing about it is that we've talked about the 120, 140,000 AW fans that are going to buy no matter what. That show had, and I should have pulled it up before we started, but it was something along the lines of 66% thumbs up, like 25-ish% thumbs in the middle, and then 10, 15-ish% thumbs down. And that show was a thumbs up, man. It was a 2 thumbs up, but that angle was 2 thumbs down for it being a pay-per-view angle, right? Because we've seen it before, and you can't say that a crippled guy is going to go out there and is going to fight for the MJF championship. Like, it was a really weird show line storyline. And that was, of course, that's where most of that thumbs down sentiment's going to come from. I don't know if I've ever, and I mean this, I don't know if I've ever seen thumbs down on any AEW pay-per-view. Like, I feel like they've only ever been thumbs up, thumbs in the middle. And this was a message. And the message was, you do have your 140,000 people that are always going to buy. They ain't WWE fans.
No.
Because if they were WWE fans, everybody would have said thumbs up, because we all knew that MJF was coming back. But I think that the people that knew he was coming back were the ones that thumbs downed it more, because they were like, bro, we've seen this before, same old song and dance. So, but hey, watch the show. If you have a chance, it's absolutely worth it. But best show of the year? No. Worth your time? Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, I haven't got to watch it yet. I probably will watch it later, if I get a chance to. But
Swerve, the Swerve match, obviously, the tag team ladder match, the Bucks and Jericho Bucks versus Jericho and Kenny, and then the main event. Dude, MJF was incredible in the main event. I wish they didn't Pillmanize him, at the beginning of the show. That's what sucked, is that he sold that thing like you wouldn't believe. And then he legit dislocated his hip on the elbow drop spot. And then he has a, partially torn labrum or whatever afterwards. So he's a warrior, and he sold like a megastar, and the crowd was all into it, and the match was great. But yeah, so if at the very least, check those out.
Yeah. But the main event today, we're jumping right into the main event. We had Survivor Series over the weekend, and this is the 37th annual Survivor Series. Second time the War Games has been on the main event show with all the main players. And I thought that this show was really good. I know that you have some thoughts about how it ended, but everything that led up to that, I felt like it was a really solid way to end the pay-per-view WWE schedule for the year. I thought that they've had really strong pay-per-views pretty much the whole year. But
it's a great year for PLEs. It was a great year. The two between SummerSlam and this one were absolutely skippable. But the two between SummerSlam and Crown Jewel. Yes. Fastlane, and what was the other? Payback, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're skippable, but they've had great big shows, man.
Yes. This is the last one for the year. The next one, they got 2 months until Royal Rumble, and we only had 5 matches, but they were mostly taken up by the 2 War Games matches. We obviously had the women's War Games led off the show, and then we had a couple singles matches thrown in there, and then we had the big main event was the men's War Games. So, what were your immediate takeaways from the show?
Watching it, just to go piece by piece quickly, watching it, I liked the women's match more than the feedback that I listened to and that I read a little bit of. I did. I thought that the match was very solid. I hated, and I always will hate, and they're going to do it every year because they do 2 on every show where you have the baby faces with the advantage. Like, look, man, just if you're going to do it, then just injure one of the baby faces right away. Mm-hmm. Just throw one of their heads into a cage, or, hog tie them or do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it is frustrating there. But I actually rewatched both of those matches before we did this show because I figured that, you know, I wanted to see it with fresh eyes. And when I rewatched the women's match, knowing how it was going to go with the damage control is going to be, you know, disadvantage, and just let it go, right? Just let go of my criticisms and critiques of the psychology. It was awesome. The way that the damage control girls, you know, I'll stop because we'll get into match by match, but I liked it. The 3 matches in the middle, dude, were 3 TV matches. You know, it was what it was. And then the men's match, I think that I'm in the minority that, like, I thought it was like good, you know what I mean? But like, I've certainly seen better War Games matches. I don't know if, to be honest, I hate to say this, but it's true. When they're in these War Games matches, I guess I'm so trained for the big weapon spots and things like that, which this match didn't have. On the rewatch, though, it was a really, really well worked match, man. Like, it really was. It wasn't like this like technical masterpiece, but everybody went in there and, you know, they worked their balls off. And it was, you know, this big crescendo for Randy's return. The finish was great. And so overall, man, I think that show was a solid like C plus B minus, probably B minus is what I'd grade it.
That's what I felt. I felt that it was a solid B show. I didn't think it was as high as what I would grade like Backlash. I thought Backlash was probably the best one all year.
Agreed.
But this one felt like it was the middle tier of them all. I don't think it was quite as good as SummerSlam though either. But the women's match, we can just jump right into the first, because the women's match was the first match on the show, and that was damage control, and then the 5 baby faces, or the 4 baby faces.
Women's had 4, men had 5.
Yeah. It was Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch. And I felt that I liked the match. I liked it a lot. I felt that it was a smidge too long versus like the men's. I thought that theirs was timed perfectly. Because the longer I was watching, I was like, okay, like we're 45 minutes into the show here and we're still going, like, and then, I mean, the finish came like right after I said that, but it felt a little bit longer than what I'd like to see, like, out of the first match. I guess I kind of wanted to see something that, I mean, they did do that. They came out and they gave really big spots, but it just felt it was a smidge too long for me.
And so my thing with that is, you're right that like it was a very long opener, but look, man, it's a War Games match. Like you have the 5 minutes to start, and then you have all your 3-minute intervals, and you don't want, once everybody's in there, and it is frustrating that they say let the War Games begin when everyone's in, because it's like, it's the match beyond, right? Yeah. Like, but whatever. But it is frustrating though that like that you don't want them to just wrap it up, right? Because you've been waiting for these 4 people or these 5 people in each team to really get in there with each other. And so, yeah, you're right. And it is the same argument to be said with the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. Like, the Royal Rumble is, with 2 Rumbles, a long show, man. And I do give whomever formatted this show, be it, you know, Triple H, or be it, you know, if there's Khan influence, or even just people that are in there on the committees or whatever, for them to look and say, okay, we did that Rumble show and we had a full like 7-match card in between 2 Rumbles, and we had Hardy perform. This is a terrible idea, right? Like, this was a bad idea. So I do like the fact that it was just the 5 matches. What stinks about that though is where's LA Knight? Yeah, like, I get that there's no Roman, but like, we couldn't have like, who's kind of your biggest star in the company right now that just fought for a championship and got a visual pin over Roman Reigns. Like, we couldn't have him on the show. I was gonna bring that up, because he won the Slim Jim match, but then the New Day came in the Slim Jim machine, so it was like,
why didn't LA Knight come in the Slim Jim car? You literally won the Slim Jim match, the review. So, or 2 pay-per-views ago. So yeah, I agree. I had totally was like, why do we not have LA Knight on the show? Like, even if you just bring him out there or put him in a backstage segment, like get him out there. He's the most over guy in the company.
Well, and really, like, they could have, you couldn't even have. I do understand why they look, man. I want oh my gosh, not Ultimate. I keep wanting to say Ultimate Dragon. Help me with who. Dragon Lee, thank you. I want Dragon Lee on the show too, right? Like I do, but like for the sake of your stars, I would have much rather have seen an LA Knight match in that spot against somebody. But whatever. But to go back to this women's match, man, as I started to say before, psychology thing was frustrating, but when I let it go, those Damage Control girls, and I mean especially like the way that Kyrie literally skipped to the ring, I'm just screaming, I'm exploding at her entrance. The way that they all stopped and got their weapons was incredible. When Asuka went under and grabbed the kendo sticks and the crowd booed and she threw them in and she gave thumbs down too, and then she grabbed more and then she gave thumbs down again and then went and got that table and they exploded. I thought that was great. Like the Damage Control girls did such a great job catering to the crowd. It just sucks that they were the bad guys, right? Because they were so over. I thought that look, and this is no disrespect to Shotzi, but she's very behind everybody that's in that match, right? For all those super duper stars and insane workers that you have, she was a little out of place. I'll tell you what, dude, I felt so bad for her because when Kyrie came into the ring the first time, and she hit her across the face with that trash can lid, I thought that she made her head explode. And then she caught another one. And then all of a sudden there's blood all over the ring. And you're like, where'd this blood come from? And, she's so, bless her heart, man. But the trash can spot with EO was awesome. Charlotte Flair, I feel like I don't mean like a personal vendetta, but like she is to, Charlotte Flair is to Kairi Sane what Sammy Guevara was to Matt Hardy, where like they are so good and they should be so good together, and one of them just keeps killing the other one, right? Like she came down there on that moonsault, dude, just kicked her square in the head, and then her and Becky gave her that double power bomb. And I thought that she was just going to do that thing, like whenever Yosemite Sam was in trouble with the devil, and he just like would trip and fall down and just go through all the layers straight to hell. Like I felt like that was what they were trying to do to Kairi Sane right there, was just literally and then she's sitting there in front of Satan's waiting to give her another shot to go back up. But yeah, it was great. Especially in the rewatch, man. I really, really enjoyed that match.
Yeah. And Becky Lynch gets the win back-to-back years for the babyface team. So is she going to be the undefeated babyface of War Games?
And I do like that absolutely set up Bayley getting the heave ho. And we actually, both of the War Games matches set up somebody getting the heave ho, which is really cool, getting into Rumble season before Mania, because we should have Mania matches out of those two things.
Yes, and I love that. Before we get into the next match, we had the biggest return, the only return that matters on this show, and R-Truth made his return during the Ruffles ad. So they need to put the belt. I hope that R-Truth Superman pins Roman at WrestleMania Night 2, and we ride off into the sunset with R-Truth as our world champion, because he deserves it. There's literally nobody better. He is so good. And the man has not aged in 30 years, it feels like. He literally looks the same as what he did in the Attitude Era.
You're always going to pop me whenever you have Otis. The visual of Otis sitting there hammering Ruffles with Pretty Deadly coming in, and you're in a chips versus crisps argument. It's going to get me every time, man. It is going to get me every time. And then Truth is back. And yeah, for it being a promo spot, that was an awesome promo spot.
That felt like it had Bruce written all over it. That felt just
Very,
a Bruce spot.
very well could have.
And then they did a little bit of a tease backstage saying that Randy still wasn't there. I thought that was a nice little touch for the end, making us wait for Randy. And then
Johnny, if you'd have been live in the chat while that was going on, and you could have just seen us mother effing ripping this up and down, because why are these dum-dums doing this? Don't they know that these fans are just going to scream for CM Punk? You're all stupid.
Yeah.
But well, I guess we were stupid, right? but like, it was just like, oh, what is happening here? What are we doing? Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, it ended up being, that was very smart, man. Like it was.
Then we get into the big. I thought this was the big championship match night. I felt like this one's bigger than the women's. I don't know. I just felt bigger to me. The Miz versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, and we love Miz on here. We're big Miz marks, especially you, but we talked a lot of dirt on Miz, like in the chat, even before the podcast started. And then Miz ended up bringing that Intercontinental title back a few years ago, had a great run with it, should have been Wrestler of the Year in every single media outlet. They should have gave it to him. And, he kind of fades away because he does the movies and everything. And now he's going up against the giant of Gunther. And I thought that this is definitely a TV match, but I loved it. It was exactly what it needed to be. Miz was just believable enough that whenever you're watching, it's like, okay, well, he is a former world champion. Yes, he is a geek and he owns the geek gimmick and all that. But it still felt like at any point they were working to that spot at the end with the turnbuckle. And once they got there and he, did the kick into the shin, but it wasn't like the low blow. The low blow came with the full kick. And then like the place exploded because they thought that the big false finish is what you think that was going to be. And Gunther ends up just burying him dead right in the center. I thought it was great. It's not a 5-star match, but it is a prototypical Intercontinental Championship WWE style match.
Dude, it was what it needed to be. Absolutely. My only argument with the whole thing is that they all of a sudden tried to make Miz grew up loving, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Rick Rude. And yes. Dude, he's the Mizomaniac, man. Like Mike the Miz is Johnny Utah from FH fame. That his favorite wrestlers are, and I guarantee you this, dude, the Warrior, Hogan, and Jake the Snake Roberts. There's no way that the Miz even knows anybody other than those three before he actually signs on to wrestle. Okay. Like literally you call Utah right now and you're going to say, can you give me your 2 favorite wrestlers? And he's going to say, without a doubt, it's the Ultimate Warrior. And then probably, I don't know, probably Jake the Snake or Hulk Hogan. Like that would be it. That's exactly what he would say. All right. And shouts to you, Utah. That was a terrible impersonation, but it was as best I could do of trying to make you think. But anyways, man, that was my only big issue with the whole thing is that they tried to make it look like that Miz was this like magic ring man, and he's not. Like if he would have more so leaned into, I am entertainment, but look, man, I got a hot wife and I have a movie career and I have all these things. And so this is what it brought me. And now I'm going to prove to you that I can work. And then he still just got his dick kicked in. I would have liked it even more. I felt like it would have been more on brand. But that's my only complaint with that is that I wish Miz would have been presented more of embracing his entertainment and now I'll prove I can work, rather than being like, oh, I've been able to work the whole time, when like, kinda, but you literally you've been, Geek of the Week ever since, WrestleMania, basically. That false finish though was absolutely awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And then we should mention that Miz is beaten with the Lion Tamer because he would have passed Chris Jericho for Intercontinental title reigns.
Yeah.
And was beaten with the Jericho move. So cute little spot there.
I did. I really enjoyed that. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you brought up the stuff because it felt like they mentioned Bret Hart 95 times throughout that match, and I was like, "What are we doing?" We all know that like the Miz is a Hulkamaniac and all of that stuff. He's nothing about Bret, but yeah. So Gunther retains. He is now his reign continues and is 533 days now. So he's going to catch Reigns at some point. I don't think he's going to rule for over 1,000 days, but I don't think that there's any reason to take that belt off of him at any point in time for the foreseeable future.
I know that this is Cody's Royal Rumble to win, but man, I feel like the only way that you can take this title off of him is that he needs to win the world belt, and it's like I love Cody, and I want Cody to win this championship, but they can't have him be the IC title for 3 years, like when he loses, it needs to be to somebody. It's got to be a king making moment, right? Or it needs to be because he's so focused on a world championship now that he sort of slips on a banana peel or something. I don't know, but to me, like this timing would have been so perfect to now have him be the guy against Roman. There's so many guys against Roman that we have set up. And that's what sucks about Roman only wrestling 4 times a year is that there's not enough matches for you to get those. Do you know what I mean?
Not enough matches. And now there's not enough time until WrestleMania.
Yeah. I mean, we do got the 2 Saudis, which, nobody wants to admit it, but it's true, is that, those are WrestleMania 1B and 1C.
Yep.
So, that could always be a thing too.
Well, that's true too. Then we got into the next singles match, which was Dragon Lee and Santos Escobar. And Escobar just recently turned heel, turned on Ray in the LWO. And his mic work leading up to this has been lights out, incredible. The fact that he wished an infection on Ray's leg so that it had to be amputated is an absurd thing to say in a promo that I can't believe somebody got away with it and did it in 2023.
Yeah. And within 2 weeks, we heard somebody say, "I am going to kill you. Take my son to your grave so he can piss on your grave every year." And then we had someone say, "I hope your surgery goes so bad that you have a terrible infection that makes you lose your leg." Which, we're all hoping that Ray was so out of surgery and far from bacteria that Santos didn't speak that into the universe, right?
Yeah, I just was not expecting any of that, and as soon as it comes out of his mouth, you're just like, whoa, damn. But this was a quick match. It was I don't think that it went too long. It was only around 7, almost 8 minutes, but
I think all 3 of those were 8 minutes. I'm wrong, but I think all 3 of them were 8-ish.
Yeah, they were all real short. Yeah, the Gunther match was 12 or 12:20.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They're all
good for them. It felt short, and that's a good thing if you're going longer. So yeah.
Yeah, and Santos gets the win here. Makes total sense. He just turned heel. There's no reason for him to lose right now. And
it sucks to give Dragon Lee the L though right off the bat.
Correct.
I do understand why that Santos needed the win, but you sort of wish somebody else would have been in there to take the pin, right?
Right. Yeah, that seemed a little they won Dragon Lee. They're making a big deal about Dragon Lee being this big prospect, and he's gonna join the brand and all that stuff. And then they just give him the L to start. It kind of it's definitely not as bad as Karrion Kross getting the L against Jeff Hardy. It's not even remotely close to that. But it just kind of feels like, damn, why do we got to do that to somebody right away, right out the gate?
Well, and especially to a guy that loses a lot. Like Santos has been eating the pins in LWO for a year now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's been the whole thing, is that he finally got himself to a chance, or to the spot where he was going to, you know, possibly win this US championship. And then he's taken out, like, you know, he was falling short. He needed a win. I just wish that it wasn't over Dragon Lee, but I also don't think that, you know, Dragon Lee's going to be flushed on the toilet either.
No.
So,
yeah, so it was just a pretty quick match. It was just exactly what it just a nice little filler match that, you know, probably could have just been done on TV, but you know, when they have too many people in these War Games matches, got to pull somebody. But this would have been a perfect spot for an LA night match, like we said earlier. And then we get into the final championship match of the night, which was the Women's World Championship, and that is Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark. And you know, this match was another match under 10 minutes. Pretty nice to see Stark get the championship match, because you know, she did that whole thing there with Trish a couple months back, so it was kind of nice to see her back into the fold again. I feel like they should do more with her. I know that Andretti, he loves Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark's his girl, but you know, the Rhea's, I mean, there's no reason for Rhea to lose a match at this point either. She's literally like literally the cream of the crop for the women's division. I feel like she's probably
at some point she's got to have a program with somebody that is kind of a bigger name, right? She hasn't really had many challengers of people that are, you know, like the top of the division. It doesn't seem like.
No, I think you're right.
And that's what I was just going to say before you said that, Andretti. Like the next words out of my mouth were going to be, and I'm right speaking the same language as you. I feel like Rhea hasn't faced anybody that's had a chance in a long time. You know, like what was SummerSlam when was Vegas Backlash? Like Vega didn't have a chance.
Lena Vega at Backlash was the first one after Mania. Is that right?
Yeah. So she didn't have a chance. I mean, she got some hope spots, but you knew she wasn't going to win that. Who did she face at SummerSlam? Oh, wait a minute. She didn't have a SummerSlam match.
Yeah.
So she's a world beater, and she's a mega star. She's the biggest women's star in the company. Absolutely. Like she is on. That'd be wrong to say. She's almost at Becky Lynch, the man level, just in terms of like clout and overness. And it is a weird reign in that sense, because she's having a title reign similar to like Yokozuna in 1993. Yes. Where anybody that fought him, like except for your major guys like your Lex Luger, you know, and then the build to Undertaker, Bret Hart, like all those matches that I just said, one was SummerSlam, one was Royal Rumble, one was WrestleMania. Everybody in between, there's no shot, and that's what that sort of feels like. But there hasn't been this big, you know, super challenger yet.
No, so I have all of her matches here. She's had 8 title defenses so far. So she won the championship against Charlotte at WrestleMania. She faced Zelina Vega at Backlash. She then at Night of Champions faced Natalya. Then again on Raw, she faced Natalya. Then at Payback, she faced Raquel Rodriguez. Then another championship match following on Raw was Raquel Rodriguez. And then she won the Fatal 5-Way at Crown Jewel, and then now this match in Survivor Series was Zoe Stark. So
I forgot about Crown Jewel, but yeah, what a shoulder shrug of a reign so far.
Yeah, not a lot.
Like for somebody that's awesome.
Right. So we think of Rhea Ripley as like the big star of the women's division, who is like a part of like one of the biggest factions in the company, and she has this incredible character work with Dom, and she's got very, very lackluster championship matches. And it's like it's really disappointing. Who, I guess maybe I saw an interesting thing on Twitter the other week that somebody like Chelsea Green should win Money in the Bank this coming year. And that could be somebody interesting because she's getting a lot of traction. And I feel like Chelsea Green, like maybe she is a little bit of that Karen gimmick.
Oh, she's such a geek though, John. Like her whole thing was she didn't win a TV match for like 4.5 years.
But I mean, like they still got time. And if she's getting a lot of traction backstage with people backstage, and she might somebody
and
like,
a lot can happen between now and then. But I like you think, dude, if you have Chelsea Green's gonna win that and then cash that in and be your champion, and then you have Kairi Sane now, and you have Asuka, and you have Io Sky, and you have Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, and like Bianca Belair, like do you know what I mean? Like I do. It would be cool, but also I feel like that would be. It would be. I feel like that kind of cash in would be, like your Miz-ish one that people don't want versus, somebody like a Stark or somebody that might be, ready to go to the next level. I don't know. And it's only because of how she's been booked, man. Like she's just been the person that can't win a match ever.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. I guess it just feels like SmackDown is so overloaded with the women's roster that there's nobody left on Raw for her to face. Like they're gonna have some type of
you think that the match that they would need for Ripley is Becky Lynch, right?
Yes.
Like that's the Mania match.
Yes.
And it should be Becky or Rhea beats Ripley or Rhea beats Becky.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Like to really sort, because then it would have been back-to-back Manias where Rhea beats Charlotte and then Becky. Like that's how you next level it.
Mm-hmm.
But then for that other one, I think that this Io thing is great, and I love Io as the champion, but she's certainly not going to be one that holds it forever. I hate to say it, but that belt's going to go back to Charlotte soon too, like without a doubt.
Yeah, that's the only thing that really sucks about Charlotte. She's the quintessential, like, I need to have a title to be relevant in this company. Whenever she doesn't have a title, there's really nothing for her there because she's just another girl on the roster. Like she's just another wrestler. But whenever she has the title now, she definitely feels more special, but whenever she doesn't have it, she feels like just another person on the roster. But yeah, then
hey, real quick, let me throw this in. That's why she's not as good as Becky Lynch, because Charlotte doesn't make everybody around her better when she has the belt. And Becky Lynch has done that every time she gets in a ring with somebody.
That's 100% correct.
And I think Charlotte is one of the best athletes they have on that whole roster, men or women. She always has been. She's fantastic. She's got a great look. She's super talented, but she's not making people better in the ring. And that's where the difference comes between her and Lynch. And it's so funny that Lynch is called the man, and it's the Ric Flair thing, and it's Flair's daughter is the one who's not Ric Flair.
That's so true. Yeah. I know that they fought hard and long, like Rick fought long and hard for that. And for it to not go to Charlotte and that it's all on Becky. Yeah. I think
Becky Lynch is the best women's wrestler ever. I really believe that. And it's because of what I just said about every time she's in the ring with somebody, that person walks away elevated. And you can't say that about anybody else.
Do you think that somebody like Mercedes, based off of what happened at the end of the show, do you think somebody like Mercedes is going to look at this and say, like, maybe I want to go back too? And that could be a credible opponent for Rhea if it's not.
It just depends on what they do with it, because at some point here, one of you guys said about Bayley is going to get kicked out of that group, and she should. So we're going to probably get the four horsewomen from NXT together at some point. And it depends on what Monet is looking for, and dates and money and whether she wants to be around those people that she's been friends with for a long time. It's a big thing. If I had to place a bet, I would say she's going back to the WWE.
They want her. They haven't said three of the four horsewomen again and again for nothing.
But here's the thing too, Mongoose, is like, we talk all the time about even Julia, and she's kind of going to be in play here in a couple months when the Stardom deal was up, I think in February. Julia shouldn't go to the WWE. She's not a WWE talent, and Mercedes Moné is. Julia should stay where she is, or she should go to AEW, because they're going to let her do what she wants to do, and she works a different style of match than what people in WWE are going to be okay with. It's the same kind of deal with her as it is with a guy like with Roosh, where you're not going to get the Roosh that you're going to want to see. It's the same way it is with Julia. Julia is not a good fit at WWE.
Yeah.
I do need to say, and I'm really, really glad that you put over Becky like that there, Andretti. I read the Hall of Fame issue of The Observer, and it was said there, and then I heard on at least 2 different shows afterwards that Meltzer said that perhaps the biggest omission that, not the Young Bucks, not Roman Reigns, not is Becky Lynch, because what Becky Lynch has done for modern women's wrestling, and how over she was, and the fact that she legitimately needed, not like, this wasn't like one of those like token, hey, let's give one to the women. Like, she was the most over person in the company to main event of WrestleMania. And she only got it was this ridiculously low amount. It's like 12 or 20% of the votes, something like that.
I don't understand that, but I will say this too. When you think about, if we sat here right now and tried to list the top 10 women's talents ever, top 10 women's wrestlers of all time, I bet you 6 or 7 of them are still working right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I agree with
Lynch
that.
is at the top of that list. So I think it's gonna take a little bit more time for people to just come around to it. Because I mean, look, we have friends who watch wrestling that still aren't there with the women yet. They still aren't there with the women, but there's such an emphasis right now on it in WWE and in NXT that we're getting there. We're getting to the point where people are starting to come around that might not have liked the Divas era and stuff like that, and just see the women as just killing time. We're coming out of that, but it's going to take a little bit of time for everybody to come around to that.
And I do one more thing before we get off of this. I'm glad you brought Julia up. Here's what needs to happen, man. And will it? I don't know. We'll see. But if AEW wants to salvage the division, which they have some really good people right now, but the division as a whole is terrible, and it's not been good for a long time, then they need to, because Bushiroad is with Stardom and with New Japan, they need to buddy up to Bushiroad and get some of these Stardom girls over here and get them exposure here, and actually, because they have a fan base that is thirsty for matches, man, and not just matches, but like, I'm gonna kill you to death with my strikes.
Well, I think some of those women translate better to the AEW crowd than what they would to the WWE crowd.
Correct. And one person that could really potentially help broker that could be Mercedes, because she wanted to work with those women for a reason, man. And for the most part, probably just to prove that she could. They gave her a ton of money for not a lot of dates. I do understand that. But she would be a wonderful bridge for her to come in. And if you say, hey, I was supposed to have this match with Julia and I never had it, let's, could we do that at a Revolution type show, something like that? If AEW could get her only for that reason, it would make all the sense in the world. Aside from that, I as much as I would love to see her in AEW, just to see her work with a different group of people, she belongs in the WWE if it's just going to be her versus Julia Hart and Britt Baker, right? So it'll be really interesting to see where that goes.
I don't think the WWE is going to let her go to AEW. I think they're going to throw a lot of money at her, and they're not going to lose her.
Yeah, they're throwing money for sure. But yeah, and then in the main event, we had the men's War Games, and that was Judgment Day versus Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, and Jey Uso. And I thought that, we kind of already touched base on this. I thought this one was perfectly timed out, and it didn't do anything overly special other than it really highlighted Randy for the fact that he wasn't there at the start of the match. And then they did like the whole tease, like, well, is he coming? Is he coming? And then he finally comes out as Priest is going to cash in and stops it with his entrance. And I thought it was a really good War Games. Definitely not the best War Games that I've ever seen. But I thought that it was really interesting that once Randy got in there, they just let him run roughshod over all of all of Judgment Day. And it was really centered around the fact that we're going to give Randy all the shine, but then we're going to let Cody take the pin or get the pin at the end. So Cody's first soiree into the match beyond, and he gets the win in the match that his dad created.
Yeah, and so on first viewing, I was not happy with this match, and again, I think that what happened was the match itself wasn't anything over the top, and then I just thought the show was going to be over, and then the way the show ended, I literally was in a bad mood, like, and so then so I'm in the chat and I was saying that this was the Raw. This was a Raw level War Games match and everything. I rewatched it and it wasn't okay. It was a lot better than I had initially thought that it was. Again, though, to get back to it, what I had said before, this is just a product of having seen, those NXT War Games, the ones with the Undisputed Era and all of that. And then you had, even the one last year with the Bloodline versus the Baby Faces. Like,
I saw that Undisputed Era. I saw live.
Are you serious?
Live. Yeah,
man, that was awesome.
Yeah,
that was the first one, right? Was that the first AEW or NXT War Games?
I believe War Raiders were in there, right?
Yes.
Didn't we watch that one at your house?
Yeah, and that's why I think that it was the first one. Because that was before everybody was all housed and familyed up and everything else. But yeah, so we've seen some great ones, man. And then even the oh my gosh, what was the one where KO came back to NXT, and then what I'm talking about. This may have been like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where he was the last man. He was the mystery man. That was excellent too. It might have been the War Games where it finished with Tommaso Ciampa doing the that exploder off of that fairy tale ending or whatever, off of the top of the cage or whatever. It was just a ridiculous spot. So I'm used to these big, again, spot. I don't want to say spot fest, but they are, you have your major spots, your weapon spots and everything else. This match didn't have all of those, but it was worked really well, dude. Psychology was great. When every time that it was time for the babyface to come out, they were in peril, and then their guy ran wild, and then it evened out, and then all of a sudden the heels were on the advantage. Like, it was perfect in that way. When Cody got that bull rope, and they did that nut shot spot with Finn Balor, I popped to the moon, man. I thought that was great. And that was a nice little homage to the Papa. The fact that Sami Zayn was the one that came out to get the table was great. All those little things were good. And then Randy's return. How are we this far into talking about this match and not saying how flippin' huge Randy Orton is? Oh my gosh, so big. Best physique probably ever in the game. We were talking live and I said it, and it's true. Watching it again, and then I heard one of the Observer guys say over the weekend, he's as big as Drew McIntyre, bigger than Drew McIntyre. And this is a guy that was never bigger than Drew McIntyre. No, I tell you, that ain't the first form. That's gotta be something else. Say it, Andretti. What you got?
Yeah, he's not subject to the wellness policy. I know that. He looks freaking awesome. I hope that guy becomes universal champ. And look, I'm really pulling for that guy. I know people were kind of saying, whether or not is he ever going to get into the Observer Hall of Fame. I mean, dude, people love him, man, and people are really pulling for him. And I think he's going to get in. I really do hope that Orton gets in, man. And I hope that this is a really good run for him.
He's had this year, and perhaps more than, he has the most votes from the current guy crop. He has the most votes of retired wrestlers.
Wow.
Yes.
I believe that.
He's the darling of the retired wrestler.
Huh. Well, I really I'm glad that Randy's back. He's been sorely missed. 18 months. So he should be setting up for a big feud here. Glad that we're going to get that heading into Royal Rumble, and then I'm sure we'll get the match in Royal Rumble that'll set up for WrestleMania. But all in all, I thought that it was a really good Survivor Series and a good War Games. And then I know that you don't want to talk about this, and we don't have to take long on this because we talked a lot about CM Punk on the show, but he did it. He came back. Hell froze over. Legitimately, hell is frozen over. That's why they always say never in the wrestling business. And, everybody's come back. Ultimate Warriors come back. Bret Hart's come back. Macho Man in limited capacity came back, but he was already.
Think about this one too. Like all the bad blood between Vince and San Martino, and Triple H is the one that brokered San Martino coming back.
Right. All of that stuff. And that's exactly why they always say never, and we'll see you down the road. And if business can be done, business will be had.
Hey, if we're starting over and everybody's on a new playing field, then I hope it works out. I really do. I hope that they can make money and everybody can get along, and he can go into the Hall of Fame and have a couple more matches that are really good, and he can be an adult. But you look for patterns, right? And you just look for, I say this all the time, you guys have heard me say it before, what's the best predictor of future behavior? It's past behavior, right? Yeah. So we're going to find out. We'll find out. And if it blows up, in Triple H's face and Nick Khan's face, then they deserve it. They deserve to have it happen. But I'm hoping that Phil Brooks as a human being is going to act like an adult, enjoy this and have fun, and then ride off into the sunset and put all this bad stuff behind him and finally be the adult that everybody wants him to be.
Yeah. And I'll let Mongoose put the nail in the coffin on it, because I know that you're heated, but I thought that
go ahead.
I based off of what he did on Raw last night, I feel like, he came out there and did the old, "Oh, I'm home," and did like that whole WWE style return promo. And I think that is, he specifically went to WWE, and he had to agree to Vince and Triple H and Nick Khan's demands. So they mean business. And I feel like you're not gonna work around this style, and I don't want to. We don't have to get into all of the stuff with Tony and everything, but I feel like this will be different and it will be done right. And I feel that they're going to get off to the hot start. It sounds like they're going to start with Seth, which makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to double back on what Andretti said, that just let's ride off into the sunset. Let's get good matches, and let's end on a high note this time.
I know where I would place a bet. I hate to say it, but I know where I would place my bet on how it all plays out. But I hope that everybody there can understand that, for better or worse, people really like him and people still cheer for him. And I hope that for the fans and for his own legacy as an extremely talented performer, that he can get his head out of his own ass and do the right thing here and just have a really good run here of a couple of years, and then get into the Hall of Fame, get on commentary, be a producer, do something, and set your family up, man. That's what the most important thing is. And just get your kids set up and your wife and everything, and just have fun with this and enjoy it, and not just don't be yourself, man. You got an opportunity to be who you've been. And I think that's a really important thing for him to understand the opportunity that he really does have here, because they've gifted him something that he probably doesn't deserve. And you just hope that when somebody gets something like that they're going to be able to really take advantage of it. But we'll see how it goes.
Take it away, Mongu.
I'm a couple of days later, if we recorded Sunday morning, I wouldn't have been okay. All right. And I've had a lot of time to breathe, to lengthen my spine, to realize that, listen, man, we're all in this together. And that if I'm just going to spit bile, then I'm either A, the worst kind of fan, or B, I'm the person that I would probably always complain about not giving people a shot and whatever else. And I mean, just in general life, right? Like that everybody deserves a second crack. Now, this is not his second crack. This is his third or fourth or whatever. But here's the thing about it that frustrates me. And I will just put this out there to begin. I hope that this works, because if it works, then it's going to be great. And who hates great things, right? Especially in a niche sport like pro wrestling, where you have all of these dream matches and things like that we've always thought we would never see Punk and Roman, and we'd never see Punk and Cody, or Punk and Seth, or whatever, Punk and Drew. Like, these are all things that can happen. But what's going to frustrate me the most in retrospect is if he does go there and plays nice and gets along and everything's great. I do have a serious problem with, and this still goes back to the scrum, man. And here's my problem with the scrum. Okay. People will say that it's because AEW was just a B-rate company that's run by, some, rich boy that, daddy's money, everything else. And the reality of it is that scrum happened whenever that company was 3 years old. And so you had a guy that came in there that was literally king shit and was gifted everything that he wanted and was put in a position to be the face of a new company that was going to rival the biggest company in the history of the sport. And what he did was he treated the company, and specifically his boss, the way that some like big wig, king shit senior football player might treat a first, second, third year teacher in the classroom, right? Like, I don't need to listen to you. I'm the cool one, and I'm the popular one, and I know what's going on. But then when that same, senior, cocky football player then goes in to the head coach's office and he's going to tuck his tail between his legs and listen, that makes me think less of that senior football player. Do you know what I mean? It really does.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is a perfect way to look. And you're 1,000% right that is exactly what this is.
Yeah, thank you. Is because that's not an indictment on Tony, because here's the reality, man. If he keeps this company for 10, 15 years, he's going to be a hell of a promoter in 10, 15 years. He will, only because of you take lumps, you live and you learn. And I think the classroom is a really, really good analogy for that, because you're not any good when you start. Mm-hmm. You're not. And you need people, you need to deal with tough people, and you need to be in tough situations, and you need to learn how to act and react to different people that are in your classroom. You need to understand where people have come from. You need to have an idea of where people can go. All these different things, man. And that only comes with experience. And it's very unfair for us to take somebody that's literally a contemporary of ours. Tony's our age, dude. And so for him to be in there as a first-time promoter, to have somebody that he thought was literally going to take him to the next level, pull his pants down and take a poop right in front of him, in front of everybody to see, is wrong, man. It's rotten and it's wrong. And so I do, for the sake of, look, we're going to Mania 40, man. This is going to be great. And I hope that we see CM Punk versus any of these big time stars, and that we have a great time. We see great matches. I hope we see it all, but that's always going to stick with me, man. And if it goes sideways, it goes sideways. And then Andretti was right. But that's the thing that's gonna stick with me. And it put a black mark on this company that has not left yet. And it's very unfair, not to just to Tony, but to everybody that works in that company, man. It's very unfair to 150 people.
My wife and I went to Disneyland on Sunday, and we were there, and we were in line for Pirates of the Caribbean, and I was thinking about the stuff from the night before, Survivor Series, and I kept thinking over and over again about the fact that he had to be talked into going to the ring at Wembley by Samoa Joe. And I mean, dude, you've got hundreds of thousands of people around the world cheer for you every time you come out to the ring. They don't even know you. They just cheer for you, and they've been behind you for 12 years, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he couldn't even do it for the fans, and he had to be talked into doing that, just makes me sad about the whole thing, and that's not good, man. That's not good. You would think that a lot of those guys that have problems, they still go to the ring and they still perform, they still do their thing. But for him to threaten to not wrestle and to have to be talked into going, that big of a crowd, is really unfortunate.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. It sucks. But hopefully there'll be some greener pastures here. You got one more thing, Mongoose?
I do want to say this too, is that having said everything that I just did, that this can have a happy ending, because my favorite wrestler is Shawn Michaels, dude.
Yeah.
And guess who I probably would not have liked if I was a 25 plus year old smart reading the Observer in 1997. It's probably Shawn Michaels, right? And he's one of my favorite of all time. And he had all of his issues, and dude, he got booted from his first comeback because he was so riddled with all of it, addiction and everything else. And then all he did was right his ship, man. And he came back, and aside from the greatest SummerSlam match ever, which was the Hulk Hogan match,
Nitro girls will do that to you.
Right. But aside from that, he was never called unprofessional. He always was, talked about in the best way. And then what did he end up doing? Being heavily involved in NXT and being inspiration for people like Gargano and Adam Cole, and working with these people and making them super duper stars. And now he's incredible at his job, man. He's literally in there, shepherding the next herd. He's booking great. His storylines, although sometimes hokey, are all wonderful. He's doing a great job. And that's the rest of his life, man. It could have just ended at, oh, here's a pillhead that can't get it together and is so egocentric that he's the nightmare. I do hope that this is the other way. Now, obviously, CM Punk has none of the substance issues, but there is this unprofessional thing, that's there, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, man. And so that's where I hope that this ends up.
His ego is his pills, is what it is.
Yeah. So I hope that that's like a perfect way to end it. That's what we all hope. We hope that he gets the Shawn Michaels story arc, and that this.
What a story! What a story! If that guy comes back and has an unbelievable run and gets along and becomes a mentor for people and helps people in NXT, I mean, dude, what a story!
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. So, but yeah, that's the Survivor Series wrap, and hopefully you all enjoyed the show. Let us know what you thought of the show in the comments, or hit us up on Twitter at _Podski. You can hit up Andretti at Cambria County Coroner. And make sure you
I changed it. It's Toast to the Coast AD is the new deal.
Yeah, hit Andretti up at Toast to the Coast AD. And yeah, with that, we will see you next time on the Podski.